This is an audio recording of a play I wrote about a decade ago, performed by the Rude Mechanicals Theater Ensemble, a group that me and my friend Jazmine founded way back when we lived in New Hampshire. We have since dispersed to all over the country, and some of the members are outside of the country, but we're still trying to put on theater together. This play is based very loosely on my childhood and the house I grew up in, though I say very loosely. Most of these scenes did not happen as they appear, or did not happen at all, and are just compilations of feelings and memories. And yes, in case you're worried, this play does feature ghosts. But don't worry, this is not a horror play. The ghosts in this play are the weight of the future and the past.
Ghosts Are Memories by Elaine Allen. Open to dark stage. Here and there some spots of light illuminate bits and pieces of an old, battered house. A door that doesn't quite close because of shifting foundations, but decorated to display the character of the person who lives inside. A bit of ceiling hanging down into the room. An antique rocking chair with a dulcimer on the seat and an old hat on the back. A dusty shelf lined with dusty books. A mural of a garden on a cracked wall. A patch of floor, uneven, with pressboard screwed down over old hardwood. The narrator stands in the middle of the space, illuminated by a tight spotlight. As she describes the house around her, she points out the elements as if they can be seen in the darkness. The light follows her, never quite illuminating the space enough for the audience to really see it.
This is the house I grew up in. 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, though honestly the previous owners had just chopped up one medium-sized bathroom into 2 small ones so they could sell it easier. Built in the 1930s, it was once a very fine house, but through the creative renovations of the previous owners and the fact that my family never really had enough money for the inevitable repairs, by the time I was a teenager the place was falling apart. There was the master bath, abandoned after the ramshackle plumbing installed by the previous owners developed so many leaks that the only feasible option was to shut off the water and leave the room abandoned. Then, the other bathroom, where another leak forced us to hire a less than reputable plumber who ripped open the wall, rigged up something that started leaking again in less than a year, and told us it would be double the money for him to drywall up the hole. My mother cut a sheet of plywood about a foot wider than the hole, screwed it in, and left it until we could afford to fix it. There was an overhead light in my mother's room that couldn't be turned on because the thrice-repaired leak in the roof dripped into the fixture, and there was a minor chance of electrocution if you touched the switch. There was the spot where I fell through the attic floor into the kitchen. Half of the attic floors were pressboard, which literally melted in the Mississippi summer heat. The overhead lights in my room and my sister's room didn't work either, but that was because the squirrels in the attic had chewed through the wires. The ventilation system installed back in the 50s had a 4-foot-long vent in the middle of the hall floor that fell through and was so out of date it couldn't be replaced, leaving a hole you had to jump over to get to my sister's room. The dining room was lovely. My mother had painted a beautiful garden mural on the walls, even painting the ceiling like a sky with a trellis and birds. But we barely used it, largely because of the floor. Mom had pulled up the ugly brown carpet, the layers of subfloor, and the 3/4-inch pressboard to get to the hardwood floor beneath, only to discover that it had been covered because large sections of it had rotted through. She found enough boards of the right size and color to fix the holes in the middle of the room, but there were still spots around the edges you had to tread carefully. And stepping into the kitchen was always an adventure because the crap linoleum had been installed over the same mess of pressboard and padding, so it was a good inch above the dining room floor. Mom didn't fix it because she was going to pull up that floor too. Then, my sister decided to do that part herself, not realizing the reason Mom had stopped was that the counters had been installed on top of the linoleum, which meant we would need to remove those before trying to get to the hardwood floors. She made it about halfway across the room before realizing she could go no further. This is the house I grew up in. In the summer, you could feel the humidity through the walls, reminding you how little you wanted to step outside where it felt like you were trying to breathe soup. And in the winter, the cold seeped through the antique windows like they were cheesecloth. Every night, around 10 o'clock, I could hear a train whistle scream its way through a neighborhood blocks away. The yard was huge and full of flowers and weeds and possums, and always overgrown because our mower was in a perpetual state of having been stolen. Eventually, we gave up buying new ones and just paid the thieves to mow our lawn. The house was always dark, making it hard to get the energy to fix anything. It was big. My room was twice the size of any of my friends, and it often felt empty, even when there were people in every room. And sometimes it felt full when no one was there. I lived places before this house, but my earliest memories are here. Everything before it, just memories of memories.
Scene 1. When each scene starts, just enough of the space is lit to see what kind of space we are in. Hall, room, kitchen, etc. The narrator enters as a little girl. She creeps through a dark hallway towards the bright light of a television. The hallways are full of bookshelves, all loaded down with books.
I'm maybe 5 years old. It's after my bedtime. My parents are watching a movie, and I want to go sit with them, but I'm scared to go down the hall. There's a black cat under the table, and I'm scared of it. It would be years before we owned a cat. To this day, I don't know if it was just a dream or my imagination, but for most of my childhood, I was sure there was a black cat that lived in the hall. I think they're watching Chucky. I know it's about a doll, and I want to see it. I was the only one who ever saw the cat.
The light goes down, leaving her in a narrow spotlight.
We never talked about the fact that our house was haunted when I was a kid. Maybe we didn't want to scare each other. Maybe we were afraid everyone would dismiss our beliefs. You feel creeped out in the attic? Well, that's probably because the floors are sinking under your feet. You don't want to go in the backyard? Well, that's probably because the garden has gotten stupendously overgrown and is beginning to look like something out of a horror movie. The basement makes you nauseous? Well, that's probably because the plumbing backed up down there, and no matter how much we cleaned, the place still smelled noxious.
Scene 2. Bedroom.
It's Halloween, and a friend of mine is staying the weekend with us.
A friend enters a room. It is dark. The overhead light does not work. She stands in the lit doorway, takes a deep breath, steps into darkness. When she is halfway across the room, another figure steps into the lit doorway.
Elaine?
The figure giggles, ducking behind a chair.
That's cute, but I can see you. Elaine? Stop that.
Silence.
Elaine? Elaine?
From off stage, clearly in another part of the house,
What?
the friend reaches behind her and flicks on a lamp. There is no one else in the room.
Elaine!
Friend runs out of room, giving the chair a wide berth. The narrator walks across the room and shuts off the lamp. As each new character speaks, lights come up on them with electronic devices. Des on smartphone, Una on computer, Mom on phone.
A while ago, my sister posted a picture of a beautiful but slightly creepy house on Facebook, jokingly asking,
Ever see a house and think, yup, 7 ghosts in that one?
"Paint's too fresh." I give it 4.5 ghosts.
How do you have half a ghost?
Like a ghost cat, or a dark shadow that's never quite explained.
Or just the left side.
Only the left, because that ain't right.
Ha, ha.
Ha ha.
Added detail, right across the street from one of the oldest cemeteries in the area.
Our house was, what, half the size? Without a cemetery? And this house only beats us by 1 ghost? That doesn't feel right.
This is the first moment that I can remember us ever directly addressing what we thought was haunting our house. On Facebook, when I, the youngest, was 30 years old. It started as a simple question. How many were there?
6.
5.
5.5.
6.
Then, we finally got to talking details. There was actually more consistency than I had expected, considering the years, distance, and lack of any real historical information. 1.
The annoying girl.
In the backyard.
2.
The thing in Mom's bathroom.
That I thought was the same as the thing in the basement. 3.
Mom's dad.
I never saw him.
4.
The woman in Dez's room.
Never saw her either.
5. The man, or men.
The man in the driveway.
There was the evil guy in the hat and a soldier that came with the red chair.
There was a soldier guarding the door.
I thought they were all the same guy. He was not nice. 6.
The thing in the mirror in Una's room.
That's the one that seemed to be connected to the attic. We all saw them in different places, had different feelings about them, but their accounts all felt surprisingly familiar.
Scene 3. A different bedroom.
I'm a junior in high school. I have friends staying over, and I'm nervous. The house is a bit of a wreck, falling apart, and weird. I don't tell them anything about the house because I don't want them to think I'm crazy. We set up a pallet of blankets and pillows for them to sleep on my floor.
It is night. Dark. The only light seeping in through a door that is only open a crack. 2 friends can barely be seen as shadows against the darkness. One twitches.
Stop poking me.
Silence for a moment.
Stop.
Glances up. There is no one there.
Carrie, wake up for a moment.
What?
Were you just poking me on the foot?
No. Just go to sleep.
Hell no. Something was poking my foot.
Something? Like what?
I don't know. I thought it was you.
It was your imagination. Go to sleep.
They lie down. A moment passes. Something shifts near the end of their bedding.
Stop it. Just go to sleep.
I'm trying. It'd be easier if you would stop talking.
There is a quiet giggle. Both friends sit up.
Flashlight!
I don't have it. It's by you.
No, it's...
The flashlight is found and flipped on.
Did you hear?
The giggling? Yeah.
And you thought I was poking your foot.
Yeah. Did Elaine mention anything about ghosts?
No.
There is a shadow sitting at the end of the pallet. They shine the flashlight around. There is nothing there.
I was asleep. They didn't get to bed until dawn. According to both, every time they lay down, something would start poking them and laughing.
Lights come up just enough to indicate dawn. The 2 friends pick up their bedding and leave.
The girl is the one we all agree on, though the others thought she was annoying and I thought she was friendly. My sister thought she was buried in the basement. The basement was half finished as an apartment when we moved in. It had a little bathroom, which proved to be a disaster when my neighbor's 5-year-old son flushed an apple core down the toilet and we learned just how shoddy the plumbing was. A room with nice shelves, clearly intended to be a bedroom, and a big living room space with a closet. In one of the rooms was what looked like a fireplace, but with no opening. There was a section in the front that had been bricked up with newer bricks. You could tell because the paint didn't stick to them the way it did to everything else. My sister's working theory was that the girl was buried in there.
Scene 4. The kitchen. Mom and Des sit around with a group of friends.
One of these days, I'm going to go down there with a sledgehammer, figure out what's behind those bricks.
I can do it.
Yeah, I've got a crowbar in my car. It would probably work.
You're sure the wall's not structural?
It's not, but I'm not sure.
Nah, I'm curious. Let's do it.
We'll even clean up afterwards.
Sure you will.
Y'all want to come?
Des and Mom share a look.
No thanks.
The friends leave.
Do you think they'll do it?
They better not. I'm getting tired of projects that get started and never finished. Bill still hasn't moved the wood we bought to fix the cupboards.
I'll take care of it tomorrow.
The friends come back, pale, but posturing, just shy of running and clutching the crowbar defensively.
How far did you get?
Just inside the door.
Seriously?
Well, there were some spiders, and it was hard to see where we were going. And didn't you say you've seen raccoons down there?
We'll do it tomorrow, when it's light.
I work tomorrow. Next weekend. I should have some spare time then.
Yeah, speaking of work, we should...
Go! Yeah. See y'all later.
Yeah, have a good night, Mrs. P.
They rush out.
They never went in the basement again.
Scene 5. A restaurant. Still low lighting, but restaurant lighting. The three sisters and the mother have just finished dinner and are lingering.
I'm in middle school. This is the first time I remember any of us mentioning the fact that our house is haunted. We just saw a movie about a haunted house.
The story was stupid, but the house was beautiful. I would deal with the gate to hell in the atrium if it got me that house.
The library alone would be worth some murderous spirits.
Yeah, just stay out of the fireplace and you'd be fine.
And stay off the old and unstable spiral staircases.
It might even be nice to have little ghost kids to brush your hair.
People in horror movies are idiots. And not just because they do stupid things like go investigate the spooky sounds in the night when all their friends are dying. They just don't get what houses like that are worth. I would kill to live in a place like that.
Did you like the movie, Mom?
The house was nice, but we should head out.
Not yet. I want to play another game.
Holding up the peg games that sit on Cracker Barrel tables.
We don't want to keep the waiters all night.
Well, can we go to Walmart?
For what?
Just to go.
No, we really don't need anything.
Can we stop for milkshakes on the way home?
We just had dinner.
I just don't want to go home yet.
Why not?
The house is going to be creepy.
What do you mean?
It's always creepier at home when we talk about ghosts.
But only when we do the talking at home.
But you've noticed it too?
Yeah, that's why I get annoyed when you watch those ghost shows.
I only watch them in the morning.
And does that help?
Not really.
Is that why I came home at 3 o'clock in the afternoon the other day to find every light in the house on?
Maybe. But you've noticed too that it's haunted?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we do need orange juice. Let's stop by the grocery store.
Lights fade on restaurant.
My mom was always the least likely to mention the haunting. It wasn't until I was an adult that she shared anything she experienced in the house, and even now she tends to be silent when the topic comes up.
Scene 6. A kitchen. The kitchen is well lit and cozy, but there is a pitch-black doorway leading to another bedroom.
I'm in high school. My mother is taking a nap and asked me to wake her at 5:30. It's 5:35, but I don't want to go in her room. I never do. Even when I was little and I would have a nightmare, I would run to the kitchen to find Mom, but if she'd already gone to bed, I would stand at her door and call her. If she didn't answer, I'd just go back to bed. Nightmares weren't as scary as Mom's room.
Turns away from doorway.
Des, come get Mom up.
You do it.
Come on, please. I got her up last time.
Seriously? You do it.
Mom, time to get up.
Goes back to the cozy kitchen and sits to read a book. A dark shadow is standing in the dark doorway. Black shadow on black. Obviously not Mom.
This is another one we all agree on. There was something in Mom's room that made us all nervous. Something nameless, formless. We all thought it came from the master bathroom, the one that we stopped using when I was in elementary school.
The bathroom was evilness. That's why we stopped going in there. It would be okay in the beginning, but by the end of the shower, you'd be petrified.
Did you feel like once you went in there, you couldn't get out?
Like the door would be locked and you'd be trapped forever?
Yes. I used to stand at the windows and think I was supposed to jump.
I used to do that all the time and I thought I was crazy.
I never felt the urge to jump, but I always felt the urge to look down, out the windows into the backyard, and I knew that that was what had happened there. Somebody had jumped.
I remember looking out that window once, down into the backyard, and seeing a girl looking back up at me, but it might have been a dream.
Looking back at the door and the shadow still lingering ominously there.
I think the door to the bathroom remained closed from the time I was 10 until I moved out, but the thing moved out into the rest of the room. Mom brought a friend of the family to cleanse the place twice. Both times it felt better for a while, but then the creepiness would just come back. But the weirdest thing, the room was visibly brighter after she'd cleansed it.
Lights rise in the room, still not bright, but like moonlight through ivy-covered windows. The figure is gone. Scene 7. Attic. Crowded with the debris of a family's life, boxes, bags, piles of clothes fallen off of racks. There is a pair of handmade Halloween wings hanging from a rafter. It is dark. 120-watt in a plastic lamp on the other side of the space, the only light.
I'm back in junior high. A friend is over and for some reason wants to see the attic. I think we were looking for a costume my mother made a few years back. I let him check the attic alone.
Friend enters, climbing up the stairs to the attic.
Where is it?
I don't know. Check to the left, over my room.
What would it be in? A box? Hanging? Tupperware? What am I looking for?
Narrator shouts something incoherent.
It's in a box.
We are too far away to hear.
What?
More muffled shouting from below.
I think it's in a box.
What? Just come up and help me look.
I don't want to.
The friend turns to check something behind him and screams. A jet-black shadow, roughly the size of a very large cat, but with glowing red eyes, flies directly at him. He runs for the ladder, leaving the lamp on. The narrator walks back on stage with her spotlight, leans down to turn off the light.
At least, that's what Ben said happened. He said it was a demon.
It was a demon?
He said it attacked him.
It attacked me.
I told him I thought it was a squirrel.
It was not a squirrel.
I still think it was a squirrel.
While she talks, the narrator shifts through boxes, checking contents and organizing things into piles.
I'm home from college. I don't have a real adult career-type job yet, and I'm feeling the need to be useful. So I spend my free hours clearing out the attic, which is something that we haven't done since my parents got divorced. My mother's back is too bad for her to climb the rickety, almost vertical ladder. I know my eldest sister cleared a section, mainly as a private space for herself, but the bulk of the space is taken up by almost 2 decades worth of knickknacks, heirlooms, outgrown clothes, and toys we refuse to get rid of. Also, squirrels. We have squirrels, which are better than rats, I guess. But that does mean that every box I open is almost as likely to contain piles of pecan shells as any of the contents listed on the side. It's night because the attic gets to roughly 120 degrees under the summer sun, and night is the only time I can be up here for more than 10 minutes without passing out. My mother's at work. My eldest sister moved to Maryland almost 5 years ago, and my middle sister moved to Jackson a year ago. I'm alone.
A figure moves behind her, just a shadow, but clear in the darkness.
I am alone. I have to be careful, because I'm working in the part of the attic where the pressboard floors have melted in the humidity, and so each step sinks underfoot like a terrifying trampoline. Right over there is where my eldest sister fell through. Luckily, she was straddling a wall, so she didn't make it all the way to the floor below.
Something rustles behind her.
That's a squirrel.
Louder rustling.
Maybe a raccoon?
She turns to look again. A black shadow rises out of a stack of clothes as if someone stood up behind them. She lunges for the lamp, accidentally unplugging it. We hear a muffled crack, a muffled curse, and the sound of footsteps running down a ladder, and a slam. While still in darkness,
I ran for the stairs so fast that my foot went through the pressboard, but didn't have time to go all the way through the ceiling below. I never finished clearing out the attic.
spotlight back on, looking pale and uncomfortable.
We all seemed to disagree on what was in the attic, how far it spread, where it was from. I thought the thing in the attic was the man, who was also seen in the hall, the driveway, and the basement.
I thought it was something separate, though it would follow me down to my room sometimes. But it would go away if I asked.
I thought it was the thing in the armoire, the thing you could see moving in the mirror.
I never went in the attic.
Scene 8. Lights up on each as they tell their opinion.
Almost everyone who ever spent more than a few hours in my house insisted it was haunted.
There's a little ghost girl in your room.
The little girl looks like you. It's sort of creepy.
Your mom's room is scary.
There's a demon in the attic. I could bring my pastor in to exorcise it if you want.
Time passes differently in your sister's room. It's a vortex.
That last one may have just been high. In my experience, it's best not to trust the paranormal theorizing of people who are on mind-altering substances. I know that sometime in high school, my sister did some research on the house, trying to find out if there was some historical reason for our house to be haunted. If there was a little girl, a soldier, a man with a hat, a woman, or anyone who'd ever died on the property. She was home from school for the summer and probably just needed a project.
Lights up on Una in a small part of the attic, much cleaner than the rest of the space, organized, with a crate for a table in the middle. A couple of candles sit unlit on the crate. Una is writing in a spiral-bound notebook.
She went to the library and looked through the old newspaper archives for hours, took studious notes, and, as far as I know, never found anything. But she might have. She was a very serious researcher and also very reserved at that age. She could have found out our house was built on the proverbial ancient burial ground and probably never would have mentioned it.
Una continues writing, finally stops, looks up, and lights the candles.
This was also the time in her life she was exploring different religions. I don't know for sure, because she never mentioned it, but I'm pretty sure she was Wiccan for a while. Similarly, she never directly said, but I'm pretty sure she tried to make contact with whatever was in the attic.
Una turns off lamp, leaving herself only illuminated by the candles.
No idea if it worked, but maybe that's why she was the only one who wasn't so nervous about it.
The candle goes out.
I don't know what religion, if any, she is now.
Scene 9. The living room. Narrator is sitting at a computer.
I'm in high school. I don't have friends at this point, so I'm playing a rather boring computer game, but an addictive one. It's well past midnight, and when the sun went down, I never bothered turning on the lights. I guess when the lights don't work in the majority of the house, you get used to the dimness. There's someone standing behind me.
There is no one standing behind her.
I can't see him, but I know it's my grandfather. He died before I was born, but we have many of the instruments he's made around the house. He started making stringed instruments when he was in the hospital after having his first heart attack, and that is why there are 4 dulcimers, 2 mandolins, 3 guitars, and a hammer dulcimer decorating our living room. I know Mom saw him at least once, though she's never told me the details, and my eldest sister lists him as one of the spirits in our house, so I assume she had some sort of interaction with him. But my main memory of meeting him is this night, sitting there and talking to him about my life, and feeling more at ease than I have been in this part of the house for years.
While she speaks, behind her the rocking chair, with a dulcimer sitting in it and an old fedora on the back, is rocking back and forth. It starts out slowly, but by the time she mentions her mother seeing him, the chair is rocking full out, unmistakably. She turns, sees the chair rocking, and smiles.
When I fell through the attic floor into the kitchen, I left 2 right footprints on the wall right next to each other, as if I'd kicked the wall twice while hanging there. I even remember the moment of swinging back and forth. The weird thing about it is that I had scraped the outside of both of my wrists in falling, so my hands were facing the wrong direction to have grabbed onto the beams on my way down. My mother always said, and I believed as well, that her father caught me and held me long enough to break my fall. My grandfather saved me from breaking my back. Not the worst haunting to have.
Scene 10. Outside, in the driveway. It is dark. A new moon. The only light a street light at the foot of the driveway, mostly obscured by trees.
I'm in high school. My mom and I are coming home. I think we went out to pick up dinner, but when we drive up, my sister is sitting on the hood of her car. The car doesn't work right now. The transmission blew, and the friend that said they would put in the new engine still hasn't. The engine is sitting in the driveway with the tarp over it. I hate that. It makes our house look trashy, and we're not trash.
What are you doing out here?
Waiting for you.
Yes, but why out here?
Our neighborhood, like our house, had started out pleasant, friendly, the type of place you'd want to raise 3 girls. But it had degraded over the years. It got so bad that when my mother tried to sell the house a few years back, the property, a lot big enough for a large house, big front yard, and a huge backyard, was appraised as worth only $1,000. With the house, it was worth less. When I sold candy door to door in elementary school, I wasn't allowed to go off the block of our street, because here, there be dragons. By the time I was in high school, Mom didn't want us walking to the mailbox alone.
I didn't want to be inside.
Why not? Do I need to call the police?
No, no one's in there.
Then what's wrong? You've been crying.
He was in my room. He was staring at me.
Who?
The man in the hall. Let's go back inside.
She later told me that he followed her out into the driveway and stood there staring at her for almost 10 minutes before we got home. I couldn't make fun of her because I'd done the same thing a year or two before, and I hadn't stopped in the driveway. I'd been watching cartoons when I saw the shadow coming down the hall. I originally thought it was my sister until I remembered that Mom was out picking her up from work. I was alone. I went and sat out on the curb, locking the door to the house behind me, and waited 30 minutes for Mom to get home. My sister didn't make fun of me for it, and I didn't make fun of her for this.
Scene 11. Kitchen. A bit of light surrounded by darkness. The darkness somehow feels like it has encroached on the warmth of the kitchen. The TV shines into what feels like a claustrophobic space. Mom sits on a stool, watching TV and reading a book.
I am long gone. I moved to a residential high school 7 years before, college 2 years after that, and finally to New Hampshire. I haven't even been home in 3 years. My sisters are gone as well, and the house that was large for a family of 4 is swallowing my mother. But strangely, the place somehow feels more claustrophobic than ever before. Mom barely uses half the house, the other half acting as storage for the things we have yet to let go of. I worry about her.
Mom's cell phone rings.
Hello, sweetie. Are you driving?
No matter how often we tell her not to, my sister always calls us when she's in the car. She gets bored otherwise and swears that it's not dangerous because she uses speakerphone.
I know, but I worry it's distracting.
She insists it's no more distracting than talking to someone in the car.
All right, honey. How was school?
My sister is a teacher.
Yes, but what did your principal say?
The sister is clearly telling a long story. Mom responds throughout, laughing, sighing.
Oh.
Small phrases like,
Oh, honey. No, he didn't. You're kidding.
and
I know. Oh.
are interspersed. But as the story goes on, Mom starts getting distracted. Someone can be heard coming down the hall.
I was never worried about Mom being alone with the ghosts.
Glances back at Hall.
Well, rarely, but I did worry about her living alone. Her back is really bad. Like, she can't turn her head more than 10 degrees. Leaning down to pick something up off the floor is really hard for her, and lifting things above her head is impossible. But more than that, I worried about her living in this neighborhood.
The sounds in the hall have gotten closer, clearer, louder.
The house had already been broken into at least 3 times at this point. I say at least because Mom didn't tell me about the time that a druggie broke in and she had to beat him off with a baseball bat until after I heard about it from my sister, who heard it from her friend, who heard it from the cop who took Mom's report. So she might have failed to mention other times as well.
She stops and looks at the hall. Mom is also staring at the hall. There is a figure there, a shape of a tall, thin man in light, just barely visible in the darkness. He makes a warning gesture.
Sweetie, I've got to let you go. I'm getting another call. Love you.
She hangs up, turns off the television, checks to make sure the door is locked, grabs a flashlight, turns off the overhead lights. Aiming the flashlight carefully at the floor to make as little light as possible, she quickly moves through the house, checking to make sure the doors and windows are locked, returns to the kitchen, and huddles on the stool as far from the door as possible. She shuts off the flashlight, but we see the light as she pulls out her cell phone, holding it ready to make a call. This is all done in unsettling silence, the narrator watching in silence as well. Just as Mom settles, a loud banging comes from the door. Like someone pounding, not just knocking, but like they are slamming their shoulder against it to try to break it down. Mom makes her call from the phone just loudly enough to be heard.
911, what's your emergency?
Yes, there's someone trying to break into my house.
Mom literally only told me this story last month. She said the man tried to break down the door for almost 5 minutes before going around front to try that one.
Sirens in the distance, getting closer.
Finally, he went away. She says the man in the hall warned her. And that, yeah, he was usually angry, but he protected us. I don't know, but I'm glad something told her to check the locks.
Scene 12. Lights come up, brighter than ever before. Sun shining through empty windowsills and ivy. The house is visible. It has been ripped to shreds, emptied of all except for trash, and random bits of the life lived there left strewn about the garbage. It is clearly abandoned. From offstage and outside.
Damn, I don't think I remembered to grab the key.
I don't think we'll need it.
The narrator and Des enter, climbing over bits of garbage.
I warned you we wouldn't find anything.
I'm looking for a box of books. I doubt they took that.
Well, someone didn't take it. The books are ruined by now.
What happened to the windows?
Mom told Robert he could take some. He thought they might fit his house.
My door?
In storage with mine. Looks like all the furniture got taken. Ready to go?
No, I want to look around a bit more.
Careful. You don't know what's in those piles of garbage.
I can't believe they took the carpets. No one has wanted brown shag carpet since the 70s.
Stained brown shag carpet. But didn't you hang a block of shag carpet samples on your wall?
No idea why. Holy shit, is this Mom's wedding dress?
Looks like it. Bit of a mess.
We should take this. She might want it.
Yeah. I've got some of your posters over here. You want them?
I guess not. I don't really need 20 dragon posters anymore.
Guess not.
Des wanders into another room. The narrator crosses to pick up a poster before following.
The attic stairs are gone. Do you think they fell, or did someone take them too?
Probably looted. Sold to someone that needed attic stairs?
They were barely holding together 10 years ago. I doubt they could be used elsewhere.
Maybe sold for scraps?
It's probably for the best. I might want to look up there otherwise.
I've got some books in here.
Where?
Mom's room.
She joins her, squats down next to a pile of books, carefully not letting her knees touch the floor, shifts through them.
These are the ones I lent to Mom to read. But I still can't find half my Eddings, and I'm missing at least one Pratchett.
So, are we done? We shouldn't be here after dark. There might be squatters.
And we might fall through the floor if we're not careful, but I want to see the rest of the house. You know, it's odd. It feels so empty.
Well, it is.
Not like that. It's...
Not haunted anymore.
yeah.
Yeah, I noticed it the first time I came back after Mom moved out. I'm going to go look around out front. Careful if you come that way. The front porch caved in.
She leaves. The narrator looks around, picks up something before dropping it and wiping her hands against her pants to clean them.
I haven't been back. It's been almost a year and a half, and I dream about it most nights. Dreams of moving out and desperately trying to pack all the things that matter to me while knowing I can't take even half of it. Of having looked around in despair at a house still full of things I know I'll never see again. I live less than 3 hours away, and I haven't been back. I don't even know if it's still there. There was a man who offered to buy it from Mom, tear it down and donate the property to HUD for a tax break, and he would only charge her $100 to take the house off her hands. To take my childhood off her hands. My dreams, my nightmares, the memories I share with my sisters and my mother. She was happy to take any offer she got. I've never had the guts to ask her if the deal went through, if the house is gone, if the garden she spent a decade planting is gone, if the mural in the dining room is gone. She spent months painting that mural. She had us each paint a ladybug to represent us 3 girls, and she painted 1 squirrel to represent the squirrels in the attic. The ceiling was the hardest part because she is terrified of heights. She spent 2 weeks at the top of an 8-foot ladder, her legs pressed desperately into the top rung so she wouldn't fall, painting birds on the ceiling. Birds we would later joke were pooping on our dinner. She still has the dents of the ladder rungs on her shins. And I still stare into every shadow, trying to see shapes, to see if anyone followed me from that house.
The narrator picks her way through the debris to the door. Her 2 books, her mother's wedding dress, and 1 dragon poster wrapped in her arms like rescued treasures. One last glance around the room, and she is gone. The lights slowly fade.